as you can see, we've moved some distance from the beautiful Aula Magna at Stockholm University, and now you find us at Norrsken House, where we've been invited by you, Niklas, to hold this wonderful interview. We're really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
No, we're really glad to have you. So the idea now is that we'll have talked a little bit about what you do here, about who you are, and try and focus a little bit on entrepreneurship. So why don't we start there? For those who, I doubt there are that many, but for those of you who don't know who you are, who are you and what do you do?
I'm a normal guy from Uppsala and was lucky to co-found a payment company called Klarna together with two friends. And I was just a couple of months into business studies. And today I was initiating this foundation called Norrsken.
Awesome. No, it's and you have this amazing house where you, I guess, do help startups.
Yes, help impact startups.
Help impact startups.
Important difference.
Important distinction. Yeah, impact startup. We'll get more into what that means a little bit later on. But I want to go back to, you were a business student, as many of the people watching here today. How was that? Why made you choose that route? Do you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur and that guided your choice of studies, or?
No, not really. Well, I guess that story starts when I was 13 years old, standing outside the local Konsum, Coop at that time. And for once I had let go of my computer, which was my main interest back then, being a geek early on. And out comes a friend with a cage of beer. And he was only 15 years old, and we were all surprised. I mean, how come you were able to buy all this beer out of Coop? And he showed me this fake ID that didn't look quite good, to be honest. And me and my friend looked at that and said that we can do that so much better. So we went home, we were playing around with our color printers and color scanners that just had arrived to the market. This was about 1995.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe not everyone was born back that are listening in, but
some maybe.
And out came a fake ID that showed I was 18 years old and looked quite good actually. Yeah. And we were showing around this to different friends and went to restaurants. And when we showed off this, more people got interested and they wanted to purchase this from us. So we started to sell this. We went online to sell it to even more people. And this started to become a serious business actually. Yeah. Went into food coupons as well. And basically copied whatever we could get hold of. And but when we were turning 15, we realized that, hey, this is actually an illegal, non-sustainable business idea. Yeah. And every time I started to ring on my doorbell, I got really scared. Maybe it was the police and so on. So we terminated this illegal business, but too late. Yeah. Police came knocking on the door. 32 people got prosecuted. Wow. And different fines. And this was a very important lesson for me.
I bet, yeah.
And first of all, I mean, never be involved in illegal activity. It's not worth it.
Not the way to entrepreneurship that you recommend.
Exactly. But on the other hand, an entrepreneurship that still, maybe is something here, was fun to do a product, to sell it and make it grow and so on. So I think that my entrepreneurial journey started with that. Yeah. But then, as many students, I guess, that are listening in, that selecting to study economics is like not selecting at all, because it's just so wide what you can do.
You can do anything from there, really.
Basically. Yeah. And lucky as I was, my co-founder Sebastian came with this idea behind Klarna, and we gave it a shot.
Yeah. How was that? How was it that going from having an idea and as you put it, Sebastian's idea, and being part of starting that journey? How did it feel starting something as amazing as Klarna to what it is today?
Well, this was 2004, and at that time it was not very popular to become an entrepreneur. The dot-com boom had crashed, and everyone wanted to become investment banker or working at a consultancy firm, including myself. Yeah. So going into entrepreneurship and dealing with invoices, I mean, this should be digitalized, right? Yeah. And so it was not, people didn't understand it. I basically didn't understand it either. But my two co-founders are just so brilliant, and it was an opportunity that I knew could actually be successful. Yeah. But being in it, you don't really realize that it's getting more and more successful because you get used to every stage.
It's a slow progression for you since you see every part of it.
Very much.
Yeah.
So when I started, my dream was to imagine when we're 10 employees. That's a number that my mother and father will understand, and that is quite sizable. And then before you reached it, it's just you set a new bar of 100 employees or this turnover or this many countries and so on. Which is kind of sad that I didn't appreciate that journey and was grateful for it. But I think it's very common. I think a lot of people can probably relate to it, that we're all living the dream now.
Sure.
I mean, you're in a top university, but still a lot of people probably think that, oh, imagine when I'm a consultant, or imagine if I'm a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It never stops.
No, you always compare yourself to whoever is one step above you.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
It's very easy.
And easy and sad and so on. So that was one part of being an entrepreneur. On the other side, now in retrospective, I mean, to be your own boss is just so nice.
Yeah.
I had friends that were much smarter than me, and then we went into other careers, and they had a boss that didn't want her or him to shine, and hence put like a cap on their career. And why not then take your destiny in your own hands, which is entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
So that's a big luxury, obviously, and to get full upside of the work you put in.
I'm sure many of the people watching this now still have that dream of becoming maybe a consultant, but perhaps more than 10 years ago, some also have the dream of being an entrepreneur one day. What is your biggest advice to those people who maybe don't have an idea yet, but they know they want to found something?
Right. I guess number one is probably to just go ahead, and by that I don't mean to quit your studies. No. Continue to study. And start to work on this idea on the weekends, on late nights, and so on, before you actually maybe get the first investment, and then you can do it full on. Yeah. So start slowly. Second advice is probably to put in a lot of hours. Yeah. It is like sports. I mean, if you want to play Champions League or whatever, they probably train 60, 80 hours a week. It's the same with entrepreneurship. If you want to build a sizable company, you need to put in the hours.
It's not a 9-to-5 job.
I guess it depends on the ambition. If you want to build something that perhaps is smaller, then maybe that's enough. If you're much smarter than we were, that's probably enough as well. But I think that you do so many mistakes every day, and you don't have experience. The only way to compensate with that lack of experience is to put in the hours, I think.
Yeah, and you of course know this because you left Klarna a few years ago, and you founded Norrsken, Norrsken Foundation. Tell us a little bit, what does Norrsken do?
Yeah, so we're maybe I should back one step further. The reason why I founded it. Yeah. So before I started it, I had this idea that it was a one-to-one correlation with money and happiness. And silly idea, and a lot of people ahead of me have really crushed this idea, or whatever you say. That is just a myth, right? But I had to experience it myself, and I reached my financial goal when I was 29 or 30. I was able to sell off my first shares, and I felt absolutely nothing. Classic, right? There was so many expectancies I had with buying that stuff or that car, and then it's just a piece of metal after 2 weeks, right? And a nice brand or whatever, and so it didn't feel meaningful to chase the next financial target. Also, I started to reflect on how lucky in life I've been. Being born in Sweden, maybe the best country in the world, free education, free healthcare, nice family, and all of that. Lucky with my business, with the timing and everything. And I guess also realization that status quo of the world just continue the way we are doing now with business as usual is just will lead to collapse.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a responsibility, and I think that if you are successful, I think you have an extraordinary responsibility. And me sitting there with Klarna and still not being 100% sure if what I started is net positive to the world or net neutral or net negative even. I mean, Klarna is fantastic. I'm so proud of it. We make it much more easy to shop online, right? But a part of it is also that we have that you can, with consumer finance, and you can pay with somewhat high interest. And is that really what the world needs? To be shopping even more with money you don't necessarily have? And if this entire equation is net positive or net negative, I don't know.
No.
But with all the luck I've been getting, I should be able to say that, hey, I'm a net contributor to the world. And I couldn't really answer that question. So eventually I decided to quit after 11 years.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot of time still.
Of course, yeah. And you wanted to do something where you knew that it was a net positive effect. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I was reading up on, when money didn't make sense to me, I was reading up on happiness research, and it all pointed in the same direction. That was, a happy life is a meaningful life.
Interesting.
And since that didn't feel meaningful anymore, what does feel meaningful? Well, it's not maybe not necessarily to continue to think all about me, but maybe to think about someone else as well.
And if we just hold on there, man. So you said that you didn't know if it was meaningful enough for you. What was it, because it had become less meaningful, or do you think that it never was meaningful enough to start that business? Or
very good question. I guess meaningfulness is very individual to each one. I mean, starting a family is super meaningful for, I guess, everyone. I didn't have a family back then. And to challenge banks is a very meaningful thing, so I can relate to that as well. But when you start to think about, wait a second, maybe I can use entrepreneurship not only to make shareholder value, but to actually solve societal issues. And that's like such a powerful idea, I think. And it is so hard to unthink that thought. And I couldn't. It was just almost overnight I started to think these ideas, and the part about responsibility. So it was like no turning back. And that felt more meaningful.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of students can relate to that, understanding that it's meaningful, having the social impact, and sustainability has a much larger meaning in part of our studies today, to a much larger degree than I imagine it was in the past.
We had nothing.
No, exactly, exactly. So everything's trending in the positive direction, I guess.
It's very good.
So tell me more about Norrsken. What do you actually do here? So on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so trying to figure out, I mean, how can I be the best value? I stumbled upon this philosophy called effective altruism. And basically what it says is that if you want to do something good, you should do it as effectively as possible per dollar spent. And what it also says is that you should use your own skill to do maximum good. And I know a little bit about tech, I know a little bit about entrepreneurship. Maybe then that is the components I should use to do some good, not to try to, I don't know, build a hospital. I don't know how to do that. And that wouldn't make sense. So what we are doing is that basically we're doing three different things. One is that we are setting up co-working spaces or hubs for impact entrepreneurs. And impact entrepreneurs are then again entrepreneurs that are not only thinking about shareholder value, but are actually solving a societal issue with their business model.
Do you have any cool examples? Maybe that you're working on like now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could take Northvolt that we're invested in. They're building the world's most greenest battery, which is essential for the sustainable world. Some people might have heard about MatSmart. So food you can buy at a discount online that otherwise would have gone to waste. So for every unit of food you buy is a unit that otherwise would have gone to waste, and you would have needed to buy something that was not going to waste, and so on. So those are examples, and these are the entrepreneurs that are guests here or sitting here in this house. There's about 120 companies, 450 people, and they're all sitting here at the discount that the foundation is subsidizing as a platform to enable this new kind of entrepreneurship. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we have an investment vehicle of 1.2 billion SEK in which we can invest in these companies. And then we have something called initiatives, which is a mixture of everything. One thing is that we set up a corona test lab. So 20% of all PCR tests are now being done in this lab that we set up together with other great entrepreneurs.
That's amazing.
We're doing, what else? We're doing something called Impact Week. It's a week, it's not Fashion Week, but rather a week dedicated to impact. So a mixture. We're doing an accelerator. So we're trying to find the 20 most impactful business ideas in the world. We have them here during the summer for 2 months, and we're trying to help them as much as possible so that they become successful.
That's interesting. So since you've been focusing on like this impact entrepreneurship, Have you found any difficult in finding ideas that fit that mold, or are there any specific challenges to the impact part of entrepreneurship?
It is. It's a lot of challenges. I mean, first of all, I think it's important that people understand that you cannot make a business model out of all societal challenges. So the worst possible outcome, I think, for Norrsken would be that people think that, hey, let's only do impact investing and not do charity any longer.
Of course.
That is also very much needed.
They're separate.
Yes, they're separate pools, separate issues. And I think that my knowledge is better contributed into where you can find business models. So that's one thing important to take apart. Another thing is that I think that now it becomes technical, but hardware solutions require more capital, harder to scale. They don't get funded as much as they should, I think.
So has that been a focus for you to maybe put some more effort into those since they don't get funding elsewhere, or is that just a challenge that you've noted?
Yeah, I don't think we've put enough focus enough. So we have a special pool of capital called the Moonshot Bucket, in which the three other very generous investors, Philip Tisander of Van Wellington, Sebastian Knudsen of King.com, and Carl Manne, the founder behind Minecraft, they put in this pool of money where they don't require any upside. So it's basically a super generous donation, but still invested into these moonshot ideas. And in that pool is mainly hardware. Part of that is hardware solutions.
So let's say that the people watching are some really ambitious students that have an amazing idea and really like the idea of having an impact in founding their idea. Are there any criteria that they need to know about if they want to work with Norrsken, and how would you go about potentially working with Norrsken?
Right, so in general, I think the statistics are really clear that it's much higher likelihood of succeeding if you're a founding team and not just a founding person.
Work with others.
Work with others.
Yeah.
And it's also like a litmus test. What is that in English?
I don't know, but it's kind of a test. That
kind of
works.
test. Yeah. That if you can't recruit or find co-founders, you will not find talent beyond that anyway. So that's something that we have a requirement. It needs to be a founding team, basically. It needs to be highly impactful. It needs to be a one-to-one correlation with revenue and impact. So for each unit sold, it needs to be 1 unit of impact.
How do you measure that?
So we measure it per company.
Okay.
It's mainly converted to perhaps saved CO2.
Okay.
So that's a KPI. So we force all the companies we invest in. We have a impact KPI which we measure. But it differs to each and every company.
Depending on what kind of impact they have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to compare women's right to poverty or to climate change, and they're all important, right?
Yeah.
So they each one have individual KPIs. So we're talking team, we're talking about highly impactful. We want them to have a business model. Doesn't need to be revenue today, but some way of earning money eventually. I think that if you can find that, you can hire more people, you can make even more revenue, and that will make even more impact. And we want to see these ideas that could potentially scale at a global level. So they are probably the 3 main components, I say. But then it's just to apply. And you can do it on our website. Different pools of capital for different stages. The accelerator, if it's pre-revenue, very early stage. And then the fund is actually when you do have some kind of revenue.
Of course.
So
advice to everyone, go in and apply if you have an idea.
For sure. Use your skills, your talent to actually build companies that are impactful.
So I want to build on that, becoming an entrepreneur. What do you see as the biggest reasons people choose not to become an entrepreneur, or maybe pass up their idea and founding something?
I guess one reason that I see among my friends is that they perhaps become comfortable in that they already maybe found a job after their studies and buy their first apartment, get their first debt, maybe get a family, and then it sort of becomes almost irresponsible to start a company and give up that revenue stream.
It's a riskier job, of course.
Much riskier job, much higher risk. So that's probably one big reason. And then, I guess requires a lot of courage to believe in something, and then you need to convince your friends to join you on this idea as well.
Of course.
So I think there's so many reasons to not pursue entrepreneur.
There are probably a million reasons for why people in their head think that they shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But also that we talked about it being a risky venture, becoming an entrepreneur. I'm sure you've seen many entrepreneurs and ideas that have come in that seem great but never succeeded. What do you think? The first question: what are some of those reasons that a good idea doesn't become a successful business?
First of all, I think you need to have so much luck.
Yeah.
If the idea behind Klarna would have come 3 years earlier, when e-commerce didn't take off as it did in 2005, it would be a no Klarna today.
Yeah.
So I think timing and luck is everything. And then I think you need perhaps to be lucky in terms of finding the first customers, and really also hard. We're talking about it a little bit before this session, that when should you give up?
Yeah.
Some companies, I guess, they try for 10 years and then succeed, and some maybe should have given up a little bit earlier. It's very, very hard. It's very individual per company.
Do you think that has to be a personal judgment when you give up or move on from an idea, or are there any signs when maybe you should try something else?
I don't know.
No.
To be honest.
No?
I don't know. Maybe when your boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with you, or your friends gets too sick of you, and maybe then you should give up. But it's very, very hard.
That's probably a pretty clear sign that you should at least reconsider.
Yeah.
If it's starting to impact
listen to your friends.
Yeah.
And when it impacts other parts.
Yeah. I want to get into a little bit more about you and who you are. What would you say that being where you are today, having Norrsken, having founded Klarna, looking back in your past when you had this illegal venture in your youth, if you could go back to your time as a student, as our viewers are, what's some advice, some things you wish you knew then that you know today?
I would probably say the main thing I would advise myself is probably to look into personal development. For a very, very long time, I believed that I will be lucky when. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are thinking that way. I will be lucky when. But that never ends. Yeah. And you have to realize that that's just an inner journey that you need to do with yourself. And for me to seek external validation and have this performance-based self-consciousness that if I perform really well, then I deserve to be loved, I think instead of chasing those performances one after the other, have been much smarter instead of looking inwards. Why am I thinking this way? Why do I need to have that external validation and recognition? And I think if you look to like the eastern part of the world, in those kinds of religions, these are like main topics that they discuss, and where the brightest minds goes in and think about, where we are much more scientific based. I'm really generalizing now. Yeah. But there's just so much knowledge there to get, and we don't pay value to it because we lost the importance of church and forgot about faith and spirituality and all of those parts. But it's just such a treasure there to get. So I would advise anyone to look up and look into this. Yeah. To learn more about yourself and your inner values.
Do you have any? Maybe you already mentioned, but do you have any tips on where to start that journey? Where should you first seek help in understanding yourself? Should you talk to friends, family, experiment?
Yeah, I think, therapy is always useful. I had a lot of use of that, even though I've been lucky to not be diagnosed or been sick or anything like that. But that is quite expensive. Yeah. So one of our earliest and biggest initiatives by Norrsken is an app called 29k.org. It's an app that anyone can download for free. And it's packed with scientific-based psychological interventions in which you challenge yourself and then after you've done that, you're able to do a sharing with other participants and everything in your app. And if you do these courses, you will be able to scientifically be measured on a more highly happiness scale and openness scale and all other different scales as triggers us to a happy life.
Yeah.
So 29k.org.
29k.org. There you have another piece of advice and another example of the impact entrepreneurship that you guys do here at Norrsken.
Right.
Amazing. I've had a blast interviewing you and hearing about this treasure of knowledge that you sit on. Is there any final words you want to give to all the students that are perhaps where you were, well, quite a while back now, but any final parting words to our viewers?
I guess a lot of people are thinking about their career,
Yeah.
which is very natural. It's another great site. We're not behind it, but I think it's fantastic, called 80,000 Hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all about, I think it comes from that you're actually spending 80,000 hours, which is like a majority of your life, into work.
Yeah.
And that is all about guiding you to choose meaningful work, a work that actually adds value to the world. There's plenty of ideas there. Look it up. Because I think that if you're going to choose a career, choose something that is impactful, because that will create the most happiness for you.
Find the meaning that you need.
Right.
Thank you so much, Niklas. It was really, we're glad you were part of Ekonomernas Dagar this year.
Thank you, and good luck.